Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to the second part of Royal College Day, our Honours and Awards ceremony. I'm really delighted to have so many people here in person in this wonderful venue on a day that celebrates the best of veterinary and vet nursing professions and honours those who work closely alongside us. While our virtual awards ceremonies over the past couple of years might themselves have been officially judged as award-winning events, you really can't beat an in-person get-together. Our awards programme has grown significantly in recent years to reflect not only the breadth of experience and achievement in the veterinary professions, but also the college's strategic vision to be recognised as a trusted, compassionate and proactive regulator, and a supportive and ambitious Royal College, underpinning confident veterinary professionals of whom the UK can be rightly proud. We will also have grants and awards presented by our Mind Matters initiative and from our charity partner, Rcvs Knowledge, as well as presenting 14 Rcvs awards across 7 different categories, including Impact, International, Inspiration, Honoree Associates, and our relatively new Compassion Award and Student Community Award. Ordinarily, we would save our most prestigious award, the Rcvs Queen's Medal, which was mentioned this morning. We would save this one ordinarily till last. However, this year's very worthy winner has a plane to catch in a few hours' time. So we have rejigged the running order so he doesn't miss his flight. To round off our day, I should be delighted to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Jim Green, Director of Operations at the British Animal Rescue and Trauma Care Association, who will be delivering his talk entitled Connections That Count, Integrating Vets and Emergency Responders to Meet Societal Needs. At this point, I'm really sorry to announce that Jim won't actually be able to join us here as planned. He sadly has COVID. However, he has really kindly agreed to join us by live video link and is, I think, watching at this moment. So he's agreed to join by live video link later on this afternoon so we can still listen to his talk. So without further ado, I will ask our Chief Executive, Lizzie Lockett, to get the celebrations underway.
Thank you, Kate, and good afternoon, everybody. In the time that we have available today to make our presentations, we'll only have a few minutes to explain each of the award categories and then say a few words about our winners. But please do take a moment to read through the programme as well, because there's a huge amount of detail in there about our winners and their accomplishments. Also in your programme, you'll find a note about the illustrations that we'll be using today to set the scene for each of the Rcvs award categories, with a key element of those scenes engraved into the awards themselves. Now, because of the aforementioned dash to Heathrow, we turn first to the celebration of the Rcvs Queen's Medal. Our patron, Her Majesty the Queen, has kindly given her permission for this honour to be named after her. The Queen's Medal is awarded to a veterinary surgeon for a lifetime of outstanding contributions to the profession, who has dedicated their career to working above and beyond the call of duty in the fields of veterinary medicine or science or related areas. It is the highest honour that the college can bestow.
I am delighted to announce that the recipient of this year's Rcvs Queen's Medal is Professor Mike Hertage, and it is my very real pleasure to award him this honour today. Mike graduated from Liverpool University and is now Emeritus Professor of Small Animal Medicine at the University of Cambridge and a Life Fellow of St Edmund's College, Cambridge. He was a former Dean of the Cambridge Veterinary School and was in charge of the small animal medicine and diagnostic imaging services at the Queen's Veterinary School Hospital. Throughout his career, Mike has also been involved in veterinary organisations and governance. He was the first president of the European Board of Veterinary Specialisation and served as president of the British Small Animal Veterinary Association. He also has had an extensive research career and has provided his expertise to charities such as the Kennel Club. His nominator was Webinar Vet founder Anthony Chadwick, who said, Mike has worked at the University of Cambridge from graduation to retirement, showing a great degree of concern for the students, and went above and beyond during his time teaching clinical studies to a very high level when he became Dean of the Vet School. This extended beyond the remit of undergraduates to the many postgraduates who benefited from his excellence while studying for PhDs, diplomas, and certificates. Mike's excellence and commitment as a clinician has not stopped him publishing well over 200 papers in Rcvs, scientific and professional journals. Mike, it gives me great pleasure to present you with the Rcvs Queen's Medal today. Please join me on stage to receive your award.
Madam President, Council members, thank you very much indeed for awarding me this Queen's Award, and thank you for Anthony Chadwick for proposing me. It is a massive award for me, and I'm really humbled by the fact that people have thought me worthy of this award. This award would not be possible without the support that I have from many people over the years. The students at Cambridge who always manage to come up with that probing question that I've never even thought about, let alone know how to answer. The graduate students who have, with their intellect, produced fantastic work that has pushed the bounds of veterinary medicine forwards. And my residents and my members of staff and colleagues who have supported me throughout my whole career. I'm really indebted to all of them. I'm also indebted to my family. My wife and children are here today, and I would like to thank them for allowing me the time, for encouraging me to spend and immerse myself in my hobby, which is the veterinary profession, and what a wonderful profession it is. So thank you very much to everyone for this award.
We now move to the presentation of awards by our charity partner, Rcvs Knowledge. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the excellent work they do to advance the quality of veterinary care for the benefit of animals, the public and society. And I'm really pleased to welcome Amanda Bogue, Rcvs Knowledge's Chair of Trustees, to make the presentations.
Thank you, Lizzie. I managed not to fall up the stairs there, but got a label stuck to my foot, so apologies for that. Thank you very much. Hello, and it's a real pleasure to be here today with everyone on behalf of the Rcvs Knowledge Trustees and team.
So the first Rcvs Knowledge Award today is the Veterinary Evidence Student Award, which recognises the capability of undergraduate students in producing high-quality research. All award submissions go through the usual standards and peer review process that Rcvs Knowledge's open access peer-reviewed journal Veterinary Evidence uses. The judging panel were really impressed with this year's submissions and would have been happy to have published all of them in Veterinary Evidence.
And I'm pleased to announce that the Veterinary Evidence Students Award 2022 has been won by Sarah Daphne Fu, who wrote her knowledge summary whilst completing her Bachelor of Veterinary Biology at the University of Sydney. Sarah submitting the winning knowledge summary titled Comparison of Supraglottic Airway Devices versus Endotracheal Intubation for Achieving a Patent Airway and Maintaining a Stable Anesthesia in Rabbits. Sarah focused on this topic as rabbits are becoming increasingly popular as pets. Her paper found evidence to support the use of both devices in maintaining a stable anesthesia in rabbits, but for those practitioners who are untrained in endotracheal intubation in this species, supraglottic devices may be an alternative. Sarah can't be with us today, but I am pleased that she is attending virtually from home. Sarah, I hope you can see us, and I'm delighted to formally present you with this year's first place Veterinary Evidence Student Award. Congratulations.
I'm super happy that Amanda's having to say all the technical Becky stuff, because I don't think I'd manage some of those words. So we next turn to the Knowledge Awards for Quality Improvement, or QI, which is Knowledge's way of commending individuals and teams that have driven improvement within their organisations. This year, Rcvs Knowledge is presenting 4 Quality Improvement Awards, and the winner of the first QI award is Donview Veterinary Centre.
Donview Veterinary Centre has won for demonstrating a strong learning culture for their quality improvement initiative looking at post-operative temperatures in practice. Working together, the team used clinical audit to identify where and how they could make improvements. The whole team made changes across the practice with investments in new equipment where needed. They created a psychologically safe learning environment to improve the patient journey. Congratulations, Jennifer O'Connor from Donview Veterinary Centre. Please join me now to accept your award on behalf of the practice.
The second QI award goes to Anderson Moore's Veterinary Specialists.
Anderson Moore's veterinary specialists were inspired through team discussions and by the aviation industry to introduce a notice to anaesthetists. This electronic notice highlights any changes within the practice that could have safety implications for the team and their patients. A simple yet effective initiative has increased team confidence, showed measurable improvements, and is an excellent example of how simple initiatives can have a really big impact. Congratulations. Matt Gurney from Anderson Moore's Veterinary Specialists, please join me on stage to collect the award on behalf of your team.
The third QI award goes to an individual rather than a team, and the winner is Eloise Collins.
Eloise Collins, head veterinary nurse at Beach House Veterinary Centre, used checklists, auditing, benchmarking, team meetings and journal clubs to help improve practice culture and patient care. Eloise used an honest and open approach to help bolster psychological safety, creating positive changes throughout the organisation. Congratulations, Eloise. Again, please join me on stage to accept your award.
And the fourth and final QI award goes to Vets Now.
Vets Now empowered their team to improve the quality of care for the increased number of dystocia cases they were seeing. By creating a working group and running an organisation-wide audit, they established outcome benchmarks and created resources, guidelines and specialised training. These evidence-based tools help their clinicians in the decision-making process, resulting in improved patient welfare. The high engagement levels in this QI initiatives have highlighted their team-wide commitment to supporting and improving patient outcomes. Congratulations. Lucy Lester, please join me on stage to accept your award on behalf of the Vets Now team.
We now move on to our final Rcvs Knowledge Award this year. The Ploughwright Prize, a biennial award which brings £75,000 of research funding, recognises an individual working in Europe or the Commonwealth who has made a significant impact on the control, management and eradication of infectious diseases of animals. As I'm sure you'll know, Walter Ploughwright was widely regarded as one of the world's most eminent veterinary virologists, whose development of a tissue culture vaccine represented a key milestone in efforts to eradicate rinderpest.
It is with great pleasure that I can announce that the Ploughwright Prize 2022 is awarded to Dr. Herman Barkheimer, Professor in Epidemiology of Infectious Diseases from the University of Calgary, for his research on mastitis, Johne's disease and antimicrobial resistance. Delighted Dr. Barkheimer is able to be with us today. He's a globally recognised leader in these areas. His work involves developing, implementing and evaluating farm-specific disease reduction strategies for cost-effective and sustainable disease control on dairy farms. He uses epidemiology to study disease pathogenesis, improve management to prevent and control infectious diseases, promote health and well-being, ensure the integrity and safety of the food supply, and support animal agriculture and hence society. His research has many positive implications for both animal and human health. Congratulations, Dr. Blakeney. I'd like to invite you to the stage to say a few words and accept the Ploughwright Prize.
Written in very large letters. So most of these important research prizes are awarded to basic scientists who have made an important discovery, like finding a pathogen causing a disease or something like that. But in contrast, I am a veterinary epidemiologist, an applied researcher, and my research is mainly done on dairy farms. And I do not hold even one patent. So when I received the email from Dr. Miranda Luck that Rcvs Knowledge has awarded me the Ploughwright Prize, I was therefore surprised, nearly shocked, although I knew that, of course, that I was nominated. So this prize really means a lot to me. And I was in Dublin at that moment at the Johnny's disease conferences, and we celebrated it with a couple of very good Guinness and also Irish whiskey. Sorry, they also have whiskey in Ireland, and for the purists here. So it really means a lot to me, and also with all the teams that I work with, that I lead. And I therefore would like to profoundly thank Rcvs Knowledge for actually having this prize for a clearly very important topic, like infectious diseases, and the selection committee for awarding me the Ploughwright Prize. Thank you.
So that concludes the presentation of the Rcvs Knowledge Awards today. On behalf of my fellow trustees and the Rcvs Knowledge team, I'd like to thank the Rcvs for inviting us here. I would also like to add how pleasing it is to see evidence-based medicine being used to such valuable effect by veterinary professionals at all stages of their careers, all the way from students through general practice to specialist institutes, such a variety of contexts. This is something that we as a charity champion and which underpins our work at Rcvs Knowledge. Thank you, and I will now hand back to Kate and Lizzie.
Thank you, Amanda, and congratulations again to all of our Rcvs Knowledge Award winners. We now move to a book donation by the British Small Animal Veterinary Association.
Each year, BSAVA generously donates to the Rcvs Knowledge Library a copy of all of the books it has published in the previous year, plus a selection of books given in memory of Noel Ormrod, who passed away during his term as Senior Vice President of the BSAVA in 1967. I would like to invite to the stage for this presentation Alison Speakman, BSAVA President, and Chris Gush, Executive Director of Rcvs Knowledge, which also runs the Rcvs Library and Information Service.
Thank you, Alison and Chris. So we move now to present the Sarah Brown Mental Health Research Grant, which was founded in 2019 in memory of our Rcvs Council colleague, Sarah Brown, who sadly lost her life in 2017. This grant will be awarded by the incoming chair of our Mind Matters initiative, Kate Richards.
I'm proud to announce that this year we will be awarding a £20,000 grant to the research team at the University of Surrey, which is led by Dr. Catherine Wakelin. The University of Surrey's study will explore perfectionist traits and self-criticism, which are common amongst vets and are associated with a range of self-injurious behaviours and psychopathology. Perfectionism can also enhance vets' vulnerability to distress when facing moral challenges. The Sarah Brown Grant will help to fund the team's study into the effectiveness of an online compassion-focused therapy intervention for vets' self-criticism and perfectionism. The therapy has been developed to target individuals with high levels of self-criticism who tend to benefit less from traditional cognitive therapies. The MMI judging panel were impressed by the team's thorough application and careful consideration that went into tailoring the research project to veterinary professionals. Perfectionism and self-critique are commonly present amongst veterinarians, and it is important to take these specificities into account when developing effective modes of support. Unfortunately, Catherine cannot be with us today, so the award will be received by Professor Chris Proudman, Head of the Surrey Vet School, on her behalf.
Thank you, Kate. We return now to the presentations of the college's honours and awards. To start with this year, we are awarding 2 Rcvs Student Community Awards. First presented in 2021, this award recognises a veterinary student or student veterinary nurse who has gone above and beyond to support their fellow students and wider veterinary school or VN college community. It can also be awarded to someone who has contributed to their wider local community. We have 2 recipients of this award today, the first of whom is Paul Gogerty.
During his time at the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies, Paul helped champion the importance of connecting with nature for mental health and well-being. Demonstrating a keen interest in conservation medicine, Paul has been a committee member of the Dick Vet Wildlife Conservation Society for several years. He has participated in a number of field projects, including ringing and assessing the health of white-tailed eagle chicks in the Scottish Highlands, and most recently has organised and helped to run a bespoke set of courses teaching nature conservation and field skills to a group of veterinary students. His nominator, Dr. Glenn Cusker, said, "Paul invested considerable time preparing a successful student experience grant application that allowed us to deliver 3 intensive and immersive seasonal weekend nature awareness courses for 12 undergraduate students. These weekends allowed students to experience and discover the wildlife living on campus and to learn about wildlife tracks and signs, camera trapping, campus biodiversity, species monitoring, and surveying, and the benefits that nature has for our own mental health and well-being. Paul, I am delighted to present you with the Rcvs Student Community Award. Congratulations.
My thank yous were going to be really easy today because, to be honest, most people were in this room, but sadly Dr. Kuska can't be with us today because of some problems with trains coming down. But I would like to thank the Conservation Department at the uni for always supporting me through any questions and things that I wanted to push within the department. I also wanted to say thank you to my family for raising me as a bit of a feral child. Don't cry, Mum. And allowing me to really explore as a child and teaching me the true value in wild spaces and wild things. And also a huge thank you to the Royal College. I'm hoping that this is the start of a huge change in the veterinary profession to really recognise the value in nature and the things that we can do for a sustainable veterinary career going forwards. Thank you very much.
talking to many veterinary surgeons about their inspiration to starting to be a vet, I think a former Feral Child Award probably would be very popular indeed. Our second Student Community Award goes to Fergus Mitchell.
Fergus is a student at the University of Nottingham Veterinary School, where he has acted as a student welfare officer and has also undertaken a number of research projects on the connections between physical and mental health, the conclusions of which were presented at the Rcvs Mind Matters Initiative's Research Symposium last year. During the pandemic, Fergus led many projects and initiatives to help his fellow students, including mental health days, creating support booklets and organising online events. He founded the National Vet Student Wellbeing Week in 2021, alongside fellow student welfare representatives across the many UK veterinary schools and the Association of Veterinary Students, which attracted over 1,000 vet students and ran again in 2022. His nominator, Georgina Bladen, a teaching associate in clinical skills at Nottingham, said, "We are fortunate at Nottingham to have a student society position of student welfare officer for students interested in mental health to support their peers and promote student well-being during their studies. Fergus has been an exemplary student for this role during a challenging year for all veterinary students. Fergus, I am delighted to present you with the Rcvs Student Community Award. Congratulations."
Thank you very much, everybody. And a big thank you to the whole of the Rcvs for putting on today. It's a lovely day out in London. I'd just like to say a few things, really. Firstly, a big thank you to Georgie Bladen at Nottingham for nominating me. She's supported me a lot through my last 4 years at Nottingham, and I couldn't have done a lot of what we've been able to put on without her. I'd also like to thank a lot of the team at Nottingham. It's an incredible environment, and right the way from the Mental Health Matters team through to my fellow students. It's been an incredible journey over the last 4 years. The final thing I'd like to say, really, is the future of the profession is very exciting, I think. It's been a privilege to work with some amazing students up and down the country, albeit virtually, albeit on Zoom and Teams and the like, but there's some fantastic students out there, and I think it's a very exciting time for the profession, and I hope and believe that you'll share that motion with me. So thank you very much to the Rcvs and everyone else and everyone at Nottingham, and thank you.
We now move to the Rcvs Compassion Award, another award first presented in 2021, which reflects our strategic aim and something very close to my heart, which is to be a compassionate regulator. It is awarded to a veterinary surgeon or a veterinary nurse at any stage in their career who has demonstrated compassion towards fellow professionals and or members of the animal-owning public. This may be as part of a one-off initiative or sustained over a longer period, but the award winner needs to have demonstrated genuine compassion to their team, their clients, or the wider veterinary community, above and beyond, everybody seems to be going above and beyond, don't they, what might be expected of them as part of their day-to-day work. Again, we have two recipients for this award, the first of whom is Dr. Glenn Cusker.
Glenn is lecturer and programme coordinator in One Health and Conservation Medicine at the Royal Dick School of Veterinary Studies at the University of Edinburgh. After first working in mixed general practice and then as a wildlife veterinary officer for the RSPCA, Glenn returned to the University of Edinburgh to pursue an MSc in outdoor education. This built on his existing interests in experiential education, coaching, ecology, environmental education and ethics, and was followed with a further MSc in education research. His nominator, Louise Buckley, RVN, said, "Glenn has been a champion for compassion and compassionate listening ever since I've known him. When he first taught and coordinated the One Health and Conservation Medicine MSc programmes at Edinburgh, he delivered a unit on self-compassion and self-care for animal carers as part of the Companion Animal Behaviour MSc. And in collaboration with the University Chaplaincy team, with whom he works tirelessly to promote a compassionate culture across the wider university. Shortly afterwards, he became a founding member of the Campus Mental Health and Wellbeing Committee that he has now been chairing since 2020. In this role, he has led and supported a team that provides a regular programme of events to promote staff and student mental health and well-being. Unfortunately, Glenn has had travel disruptions this morning and is unable to join us today. So I invite Stephen Blakeney to accept the award on Glenn's behalf. Thank you.
Glenn's asked me to say a few words on his behalf today. He's obviously sorry that he can't be here. He's asked me to thank and honour three groups of people. First is a group that had the vision to create this award and to recognise the role of compassion in veterinary practice. The second group is those who've had the courage to talk about their own mental health challenges and to bring the subject into the open so it can be discussed in a real way in the profession. The third thing he wants to honour is a vision. It's a vision of a future generation of professionals who will have the emotional and spiritual intelligence that will equip them to address the health challenges our planetary ecosystem faces. And I think that echoes what Paul was saying about the need to engage more with nature. And Glenn's asked me to ask you to take a moment to think about how we could get that to become the reality in the future. I've been lucky enough to see Glenn in action in Morocco with mules, muleteers, mountain guides, and within the mountain environment in Morocco, and I know he is extraordinary in the attention he brings to all those relationships, and he models the compassion that he's got the award for tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Our second recipient to receive the Rcvs Compassion Award is Katie Moore.
Katie is chair of Vet Life Helpline and Health Support, as well as working as a claims advisor at the Veterinary Defence Society and in clinical practice. Through her role with Vet Life, she was one of the architects of its health support service launched in 2017, which provides free help from experienced mental health professionals to vets and nurses experiencing mental health difficulties. Katie's role in Vet Life has been transformative. She commissioned and pioneered the development of the award-winning Vet Life Health Support Service, which offers professional mental health support to vets, vet nurses and students. Further demonstrating the action part of empathy that defines her work, Katie has also been a Vet Life Helpline volunteer for 6 years, volunteering both as a listening volunteer and supporting leadership of the helpline. Her nominator is Rosie Allister, Vet Life Helpline Manager, who said, "Katie's work embodies compassion through understanding, empathy, and tireless support and action. She has achieved change which has touched the lives of many veterinary professionals. With the humility that is characteristic of her, this contribution is substantial, but largely unseen. Her energy, commitment, passion for quality and attention to detail are incredible and evident in the high-quality clinical service now being delivered at Vet Life. Katie, I am delighted to present you with the Rcvs Compassion Award today. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honour to accept this award, and it's been a real privilege to be part of the Vet Life board for the past 7 years and be part and help with such positive changes. I can't thank Dr. Rosie Allister enough for her relentless help and support, and the other board members who I've served alongside. VetLife couldn't do what it does without its incredible helpline volunteers who act with such kindness and compassion, and to whom I'm really truly grateful for. Thank you.
We now move to the presentation of Rcvs Honoree Associateships, and I'm delighted to say that this year we are awarding 3 such Honoree Associateships. Honoree Associateship is a prestigious honour conferred upon a small number of non-members of the Rcvs each year in recognition of their special contribution to the veterinary professions. We are keen to recognise and collaborate with a full range of individuals who contribute to the veterinary sphere, for example, scientists, lecturers, veterinary nurses, charity workers, farriers, farmers, and those involved in the commercial field. Our first Honorary Associateship today is conferred upon Norma Chapman.
Norma Chapman is a retired, renowned mammologist specialising in deer biology, as well as being an advocate for animal welfare and the veterinary professions she worked so closely with throughout her career. While reading zoology at London University, Norma joined the university's Federation for Animal Welfare, or UFO. After attending a postgraduate certificate in education, her first employment was with UFO, a role that included supporting the student branches in 6 universities and arranging their annual congress. From UFO, she moved to natural history and educational work in museums until 1968, when she married her husband Donald, and then taught in Newmarket. They were already observing the fallow deer on a private estate and ear-tagging newly born fallow and red deer in Richmond Park, and this tagging continued for 12 seasons. With the help of 3 PhD students to carry out their fieldwork, Norma continued to carry out post-mortem examinations on scores of road casualty muntjac from various localities. Data from organs and tissues of fallow deer and muntjac have resulted in more than 30 papers to date. Her nominator is Professor John Cooper, FRCVS, who said, "Throughout her life, Norma has been an advocate for the profession. She has collaborated with veterinary practitioners, academics, and those working in pharmaceutical companies, including anatomists, epidemiologists, pathologists, parasitologists, and toxicologists. She has always willingly and unstintingly provided material, such as tissues and scientific data, for veterinary and biological research projects. Norma, I am delighted to grant you Honorary Associate of the Rcvs today. Congratulations."
Well, much of what I would have said in a short speech has been covered by my biography, but I would particularly like to point out that under happier circumstances, this award should have been to my late husband, but following his tragic death in 1982, caused by a drunken driver, I have had fantastic support, not just from John and Margaret Cooper, who I've known since their student days, but 2 of my supporters who are here today, who, as very young men, in the 60s, were involved with our field studies of fallow deer in Essex, and they remain loyal supporters all the way through the decades. Many, many other people have helped. All the field work we did for muntjac in the King's Forest could not have been done without the huge support of so many people. And of course, when we needed to sedate deer to fix collars or radio collars, obviously we called on John Cooper. When he was not available to come along to our catch-ups to deal with the deer, he recruited Andrew Forbes or Peter Green or Claire Gold to stand in to take care of the veterinary aspects of the study. To everybody involved, I give my sincere thanks, and I very humbly accept this honour. Thank you.
Our second Honorary Associate is Joyce Wesson.
Joyce is Director of Admissions and Student Support Manager at the University of Glasgow School of Veterinary Medicine, where she has worked since 1994. As well as UK and overseas recruitment, Joyce's role involves being a source of help and advice for applicants and graduates, and as mental health advocate, she has championed student resilience training, suicide awareness, and mental health first aid for staff across the school. In her time at Glasgow, Joyce has seen many positive outcomes, with more students coming forward for help and advice, safe in the knowledge that they will receive a non-judgmental, consistent, and sensitive approach to the management of their situations. In his nomination for Joyce, Professor Ewan Cameron, MRCVS, head of Glasgow Vet School, said, "Over the years, Joyce has been mum, confidant and support to thousands of vet students. This can mean being a supportive ear or providing hard-hitting truths delivered with honesty and compassion that make them take note. Joyce has consistently exceeded what might be expected, showing exceptional dedication, often at the expense of her own personal time. Joyce, I am delighted to confer upon you today Honorary Associateship of the Rcvs. Congratulations."
Thank you so much for this. I'm very humbled to accept this award. I have been privileged to be part of so many veterinary journeys, and this is absolute icing on the cake. I'm no longer the Director of Admissions at Glasgow. I retired in May. I will miss it very much, but I know that I've left behind a really supportive team who have helped me achieve everything that I have. Thank you so much.
Our third and final Honorary Associate this afternoon is Jane Wilson.
Jane is one of the longest-serving volunteers for VetLife, having worked in her unpaid role with the charity since 1997 to provide free and confidential help on a 24/7 basis to members of the veterinary professions. Since VetLife Helpline was established in 1992, demand for the service has grown, and the team of over 100 volunteers that Jane is now part of provides support for, on average, 10 contacts per day. With her varied career background, Jane has developed a skill set that proves invaluable in the role of a VetLife Helpline volunteer. She is able to demonstrate empathy, effective listening towards all callers, even in the most serious situations, and has the ability to confidently walk alongside others as they talk through what is troubling them. In her nomination, Dr. Rosie Allister, VetLife Helpline Manager, said, "Jane Wilson has supported the veterinary and veterinary nursing professions quietly, diligently, and sometimes in a life-saving way for over 25 years, always with huge compassion, attention to detail, and commitment to callers that has inspired other volunteers for decades. Jane, I am delighted to welcome you today as an Honorary Associate of the Rcvs. Congratulations."
I've always been thankful to have a supportive circle of friends, colleagues, and especially family around me. But I recognise that for some people, when they need it most and they need to be listened to, they don't have anywhere to turn. With Helpline, they find the strength to talk about their thoughts with a stranger, a willingness to share with us often what nobody else knows. 25 years ago, whilst reading my husband's vet record, I noticed a very small advert for VetLife Helpline and decided to volunteer. And now in 2022, Helpline has a recognised place in the profession as an established and creditable listening service. Listening to callers on helpline gives them the time and the space to speak. It gives them confidentiality, it gives them no judgment, and it allows empathy for their feelings and experiences. For helpline volunteers, listening is a skill that we are always developing. It's a privilege to be trusted with someone else's inner thoughts, and it's a chance to serve those in the veterinary profession. Now, as well as thanks to my family for their support, there are 5 other groups of people that I would like to acknowledge today. Firstly, thank you to the Royal College for considering me for this award and giving me the honour to be part of this veterinary family in my own right. Thank you to the many volunteers for Helpline and the wider VetLife charity, both past and present. You are the backbone on which this charity relies. Thank you to those who administer and manage Helpline, whether it's trustees, administration colleagues, or our Helpline manager. Your continued desire to take Helpline forward and recognise its potential is greatly appreciated. Thank you also to the individuals and the organisations who recognise the importance of funding for Helpline and VetLife. And whether those donations are large or small, your generosity will always make somebody benefit. And lastly, I want to thank all those who've ever found or ever will find the personal strength and determination to contact us at Helpline, be it for emotional, financial, or mental health support. Those people confide in with us their stories. They depend on us to listen, and in whatever way they need, we will support them. We are, after all, just one person listening to another person. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Our next award recognises those who've worked internationally from either within or outside the UK. Recipients of the Rcvs International Award will have made an outstanding contribution on issues that are in line with our mission, including raising veterinary standards, veterinary education, improving animal health and welfare, developing leadership, and promoting mental health and well-being. Again, we are presenting 2 international awards this year, the first of which is to Miranda Luck.
Miranda is a veterinary nurse and international animal welfare consultant whose passion is improving the welfare of animals in care or confinement, for example, in shelters or quarantine facilities. Miranda qualified in 1995 and has enjoyed roles as staff nurse, clinical and practice manager, and RSPCA centre manager. After identifying a need to improve conditions in rescue establishments both in the UK and abroad, she set up her own business as an animal welfare consultant. Volunteering her services, Miranda gets great satisfaction from involvement with feline trap-neuter return projects, street dog population management, and disaster relief operations. Much of her focus is on the principles of human behaviour change, encouraging and motivating participants to resolve animal welfare issues independently and sustainably at a local level. Her nominator is Kay Gibbons, Managing Director of an animal handling equipment manufacturer, who said, "As an experienced veterinary nurse and educator, Miranda introduces shelter medicine and humane handling to many organisations worldwide. Veterinary clinics, animal rescue and rehoming, pounds and stray and feral populations have all benefited from Miranda's hands-on help, training and mentorship. Miranda, I'm delighted to present you with the Rcvs International Award today. Congratulations."
Sorry, that is heavy. Unlike others, I haven't printed my notes out on big font, so I'm afraid I'm going to struggle a bit, but just a few words. Really, I just wanted to say that I'm honestly honoured to be here today, and I would like to thank my nominators, Kay Gibbons, David Bowles from the RSPCA, and Harry Ekman from the Change for Animals Foundation. And of course to the Rcvs for this award. I'm only able to do the work that I do because of the help and support that I get from others around me, so colleagues, friends and family. So it really is a team effort, everything that I've been able to do. Much of the goodwill and acceptance that I receive around the world is, of course, in no small part due to the fact that I am a veterinary nurse with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. And that's a title I'm very proud of and I hope that we can protect. The qualification has opened many doors for me beyond those of the veterinary practice, and I've been very fortunate and privileged to work in many countries. The respect that I think I gain is due to the evidence-based work of the UK vets, nurses and welfare professionals over the last 20 years. It means that my audiences worldwide have always been willing to listen and engage with the information that I share with them. And as in my bio mentioned, my focus has always been to get people to develop their own solutions so that they can improve animal welfare at a local level sustainably. And for all of this knowledge and skills that I'm able to share, I'm really proud, and I hope that everyone else is really incredibly proud of this as well. Thank you.
International award today is presented to Professor Holger Volk.
Holger is head of the Department of Small Animal Medicine and Surgery at the University of Veterinary Medicine, Hanover in Germany, as well as Honorary Professor of Veterinary Neurology and Neurosurgery at the Royal Veterinary College in the UK. He is internationally known for his work in the field of SARS-CoV-2 medical scent detection dogs, neuropathic pain and epilepsy. He has received several Jim B. Educator in Teaching Awards, the prestigious BSAVA Bourgelat Award, and the International Canine Health Award from the Kennel Club. He has also published multiple books and book chapters, over 250 articles, and over 170 conference abstracts. Holger was president of the European College of Veterinary Neurology, treasurer of the European Board of Veterinary Specialisation, and has been chairing the International Veterinary Epilepsy Task Force. His nominator, Professor Richard Meeson, FRCVS of the RVCs, says that Holger's distinguished career in the basic and clinical research has had a very clear societal impact during the coronavirus pandemic. Through his ability to bridge the gap between basic and clinical science, he has been able to create impact into society, animal welfare and clinical practice. Holger, I am delighted today to present you with the RCVS International Award. Congratulations.
It's really heavy. Thank you. Thank you obviously to the President, thank you to the Council and to the Nomination Committee. And actually I want to start in thanking the pets because the animals are just amazing. When we started the journey with the COVID dogs, who would have thought that dogs can sniff out a person with COVID? I wouldn't. We doubted it actually. I asked a lot of virologists, they doubted it as well. And now dogs can do that, right? They are absolutely amazing. And to be honest, people trust pets more than they trust the PCR, which I would have never thought either. So, you know, politicians don't want to hear it, but what do politicians want to hear? Anyhow. But I am obviously very grateful for this, and to be very honest, this is not really my award. Great things are always achieved if we work together and if no one really takes the credit, and I should not really take this credit as either, to be honest. Because with the COVID dogs, we started in April, at the beginning of the pandemic, and then in only 2.5 months we achieved that the dogs are able to do that, and this would have never been anything one can do alone, right? And I've been very fortunate in my career with all the students, everyone, all my colleagues, my mentors, actually the Royal College, the Royal Veterinary College, and also this Royal College, who have supported me, and now I'm back into TIHO, and I would have not been here without them, and I'm really grateful for all they have helped me to achieve. Thank you.
We turn now to the Rcvs Impact Award for a veterinary surgeon or veterinary nurse who has recently made a considerable impact on the profession in general, animal health or welfare, or public health. Such impact could have been made through any field of veterinary endeavour, including practice, research, education, or veterinary politics. This year we have 2 Impact Award winners, the first of whom is Dr. Liz Barton.
Liz has made an impact within the profession from her championing of mental health and well-being, and for providing peer support and for working parents in the veterinary professions, having helped found the Well Vet social enterprise, as well as the Vet Mums social media support group and the Veterinary Women website. Having grown increasingly concerned about the mental and physical health challenges faced by many colleagues, Liz began curating and collating well-being resources to make them more accessible to veterinary teams. This grew into co-founding WellVet and hosting in-person and virtual events. A strong believer in collaboration, Liz has worked with Vets Stay Go Diversify, the Society of Practicing Veterinary Surgeons, and the college's Mind Matters initiative to develop a host of resources around health and well-being, including topics from mindfulness to menopause and from CrossFit to change management. Her nominator is Dr. Katrina Curtis, MRCVS, who has worked with Liz through a number of different organisations and said, "Throughout, Liz has worked full-time, supported her family, and survived personal challenges and tragedies. She has triggered systemic change across the profession, always involving female leaders. We know from her co-founders and groups she set up that lives have been saved. Countless significant well-being and mental health challenges have been helped and overcome. Agile working practices have been adopted, and brave career decisions have been made." Liz, it gives me great pleasure to present to you today the Rcvs Impact Award. Congratulations.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm incredibly honoured to be stood up here among so many fantastic mentors and peers. Mike Heritage, who was here earlier, was one of the first of those. As Holger just said, none of these things are done individually, and I've collaborated with so many people that have also contributed to the impact that I've had. The word impact got me thinking about why I'm stood here. And first, I'd like to talk about the impact this profession has had on me. It's a privilege to work among so many empathetic, altruistic, kind, intelligent, funny, hard-working and committed professionals. And I've had a fabulous, varied veterinary career as a result. Second, the impact on seeing these friends and colleagues hurting, distressed, upset. I didn't know how to fix things for people, and there were some great resources out there, but they just weren't necessarily reaching everybody. So it's been my privilege to create and collate websites and events that have made these more accessible to people. Finally, it was a great excuse to reflect on the impact that these activities have had on others. I was asked early on, when I started out on this journey, what makes you think you can make a difference? My answer was, if I can help one person, surely that's worthwhile. You could say that's setting the bar low, just one person. But I say that's setting the bar unbelievably high. The Bible would say each one of us is fearfully and wonderfully made. Mathematically, there's a 400 quadrillion chance of you being genetically you. Either way, you're completely unique and priceless. The fact that I now have inboxes full of messages of appreciation and thanks and stories of life changed for the better is the biggest honour of all. This award and recognition means more than I can say, which is why I'm shaky. Thank you for giving me the excuse to look back and the encouragement and strength to look forward. It's my privilege to serve you all, and I hope to continue to do so for as long as I'm able. Thank you to my family, the Rcvs, and everyone who I've collaborated with. Thanks.
second Impact Award winner is Professor Claire Rusbridge.
Claire is Professor of Veterinary Neurology at the University of Surrey's School of Veterinary Medicine and was nominated for her research and clinical work on Chiari-like malformation and syringomelia, or CMSM, in dogs, a painful disease that affects the brain and spinal cord. Since her discovery of this condition in Cavalier King Charles Spaniels in 1997, Claire has authored or co-authored numerous scholarly articles and book chapters on the condition and co-edited a textbook on the human disease. She now provides extensive online resources for the veterinary profession, breeders and dog owners, the most impactful being her CMSM treatment algorithm, which is translated into several languages, updated yearly, and enables dogs without easy access to veterinary neurologists to receive optimal care. As part of a multidisciplinary team at the University of Surrey, Claire is currently helping to pioneer veterinary studies in computer modelling and machine learning, and to develop an AI approach that will objectively screen breeding dogs for CMSM during facial recognition technology. Her nominator, Shona McIntyre, MRCVS, said, "Claire has had a massive impact on the welfare of dogs affected by this disease and their owners. Following her discovery of CMSM, she delivered the first comprehensive description and has continued to refine understanding of the pathogenesis, genetics, and treatment of this disorder. Unfortunately, Claire cannot be with us today, but we wish her many congratulations and now invite Professor Chris Proudman, Head of Surrey Vet School, to collect the award on Claire's behalf. Thank you.
We now move to our final category of awards for today, the Rcvs Inspiration Award. This award is for a veterinary surgeon or veterinary nurse who has demonstrated the ability to inspire and enthuse others consistently throughout their career. It recognises those who've gone above and beyond, there we are again, what may normally be expected from a professional colleague. This year, the first of our two Rcvs Inspiration Awards goes to Dr. Alex Davies.
Alex graduated from the Royal Veterinary College in 2020 and has since worked at an independent primary care small animal practice in South Wales. Alongside Alex's clinical commitments, he is the president of Vet Mentor, a non-profit organisation dedicated to helping school-aged children and students to aspire to study veterinary medicine. During his time at Vet Mentor, Alex has innovated numerous educational programmes aimed at inspiring, informing, and preparing students for their university application and future veterinary career. Under Alex's leadership, Vet Mentor has been able to achieve its organisational aims of providing quality mentorship, raising veterinary career aspirations, advocating inclusivity and diversity, and collaborating with the wider veterinary profession to encourage future vets. His nominator, Terry Ann Baldwin, RVN, said, "Alex has been steadfast in his mission to nurture and inspire students through their journey into vet school and beyond. It is no secret that the application process for vet school can be a daunting and complicated experience for students, parents, and even teachers. Alex has innovated, strategized, and played a leading role in the creation of multiple education programs designed to enthuse, inspire, and inform students on what the role of a vet is, raise aspirations towards veterinary medicine, and promote accessibility to the profession for a more diverse cohort of students." Unfortunately, Alex is not able to join us today, but but he has sent a few words, which Lizzie is going to read out. Sorry.
Which I have here. Yeah, so I'm reading this on behalf of Alex. "It is a tremendous honour to be accepted as the recipient of the Rcvs Inspiration Award this year and join a group of previous winners that have inspired me throughout my own career. Nurturing the next generation of vets is how I have chosen to define my professional identity beyond my clinical role. Future vets offer the solution to so many of the problems facing our profession. It's a privilege to be able to support school students through the journey into veterinary school, but also ensure they are fully equipped for their future career and hopefully inspire a new generation of leaders and game changers. I would encourage everyone to give back to the next generation of vets in one way or another, because sometimes all it takes to find a future vet is to share your own story. Our second Inspirational Award winner today is Dr. Brian Faulkner.
Brian has had an extensive and varied career during his 27 years within the veterinary profession. Alongside his work as a first opinion practitioner, Brian has championed the impact of non-clinical skills in delivering a range of successful outcomes in veterinary practice by speaking at veterinary conferences all over the world. Brian co-funded Colourful CPD, which has become a leading provider of non-clinical CPD in the UK. He also co-founded the British Veterinary Receptionist Association in 2017 to recognise and raise the status of veterinary receptionists. In 2020, Brian was admitted to the Rcvs Fellowship in recognition of his work in developing non-clinical skills within all roles in the veterinary team. Brian's everyone is equal philosophy to veterinary practice has earned him great respect from his teams, past and present, an ethos which has consistently created positive and inclusive working environments. His nominator, Richard Holbrook, MRCVS, said, "Brian has put his theories into practice, developing and implementing innovative and highly effective practical ways of overcoming many of the obstacles faced, especially by new and recent graduates. He has expanded this focus to include the similar issues faced by veterinary nurses and support staff, with evidence-based training in communication skills, well-being, and sustainable and ethical commercial development of veterinary practice." Unfortunately, Brian is unable to be with us today, but we are delighted to share his success with you nonetheless, and he has sent us a short video message.
Hello everyone, Madam President, RCVS officers, honoured guests. First of all, an apology that I can't be with you today. I'd really love to have been with you. Unfortunately, something has come up with my eye and I have to have a procedure today. Also, thank you very much though for awarding me the Inspiration Award. It means a lot, very honoured to be awarded it, and I'm just really sorry that I can't be with you all today to receive it. But have a lovely day, and I'm sure we'll all see each other soon. Thank you.
Congratulations, Brian.
Thank you, Kate. And congratulations again to all of our richly deserving winners today, whether they could be with us in person or not. Let's have one last round of applause for everybody. So that concludes our Honours and Awards programme for today and for this year. I would now like to invite to the stage the Chair of the Veterinary Nurses Council, Matthew Rendell, to deliver his address.
Thank you, Lizzie, and good afternoon, everyone. First, on behalf of both myself and my colleagues on VN Council, I would like to once again thank the veterinary nursing profession for their amazing hard work during the times that continue to be challenging. While the worst of the pandemic may be over, its effects are lingering on, particularly in terms of the pressures on the veterinary workforce, and the VNs are picking up a lot of the additional work around the practices, all within the bounds of Schedule 3, of course. The profile of the profession is improving. The public has a much better handle on who we are and what we do than they did 10 years ago. In the long term, I'm looking forward to an enhanced VN role in any future veterinary legislation. All that being said, my one plea to the veterinary employers would be around veterinary nursing pay. Although it has increased over the years, we must ensure that this isn't wiped out by our current inflation and cost of living crisis. If that continues to be I wish that it would continue to be a long-term financially viable career that we are all able to stay in. I would also like to thank my colleagues Liz Cox and James Davidson, who are coming off of VN Council today. Liz is someone who truly has a vision for our profession and is not content with just treading water, but always wants to take us to new shores and will continue her work in ensuring the growth and progression of our profession. Although Jane can't be here today, I wanted to say that as a fellow inhabitant of planet RVN, there is no finer promoter of our profession than Jane, and I look forward to seeing her continued enthusiasm in what she does. I would also like to welcome our two new VN Council members, Holly and Jessica. Joining VN Council can be a daunting experience, with lots of new things to learn, and it may take some time to get settled in, but once you find your feet, I will guarantee that you will have input and your insights will make a difference to what we do. Finally, I would like to ask the members of the veterinary nursing profession to continue to stay engaged with the Rcvs during this time of positive change. Whether that's through responding to consultations on issues affecting VNs, standing for VN Council, or voting in elections. I've been gladdened by the positive engagement that we've had via the VN Futures project, in particular the School Ambassadors programme. And it would be great to see veterinary nurses doing that all-important public outreach, working with younger people. On the subject of young people, over the next few months, I will be doing one of my favourite jobs about being chair of VN Council, welcoming new veterinary nurses to the register and celebrating their achievements of our profession. And we are also having dedicated VN days in Manchester and Oxford. If you're ever feeling particularly down or jaded about our profession, spend 10 minutes soaking up the energy and excitement about somebody that is joining our profession for the first time. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matthew, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming all the nurses to my hometown of Oxford in August for our formal and somewhat pandemic-delayed reception evening to mark last year's VN Diamond Jubilee. But for now, I should like to invite Dr. Kate Richards back to the stage to deliver the President's address.
Thank you very much, Lizzie. So yes, good afternoon to everyone in the room here today and for those watching online across the globe. To my family, friends and esteemed guests, I'd like to thank you for your continued support throughout my presidential year. Thanks to my brother Jonathan, who selected the music on the way in, my sister Sue in New Zealand, my nieces Eva and Tess watching online, and to my sister-in-law Eleanor, who's joined us today here in 1 Great George Street. It's been such an honour and privilege to be the 150th President of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, the 10th woman since 1844, and the first woman to lead an all-female presidential team. So the Rcvs is a veterinary workplace. It's my workplace, and I am proud to have led Council through some challenging discussions where every member has been courteous and respectful of at times differing opinions. Robust and constructive debate leads to better decisions, and I would like to thank all members of Council during this year, past and present, for their commitment, challenge and passion for the topics we have debated. Special thanks go to my fellow officers, Senior Vice President Mandisa Green, Junior Vice President Melissa Donald, Treasurer Neil Connell and Veterinars Council Chair Matt Rendell. Your support and wise counsel have been greatly valued. I'd like to thank the Rcvs staff, whose commitment and dedication to the professions is unflinching. The Rcvs employs exceptionally talented staff, those with many degrees, double PhDs, as well as vets and vet nurses who work day in and day out for the professions, all under the fabulous leadership of Lizzie Lockett, our CEO. The Rcvs cannot and does not work in a vacuum, and so thank you to the many organisations and people with whom I have worked this year. These include the CVOs for UK, for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, the British Veterinary Association, the British Cattle Veterinary Association, the British Small Animal Veterinary Association, Veterinary Public Health Association, Association of Government Vets, British Equine Veterinary Association, Society of Practicing Veterinary Surgeons, the Association of Veterinary Students, and other divisions, government departments, DEFRA, the Food Standard Agency, and APHA, the Animal Plant and Health Agency. My sincere thanks go to Professor the Lord Trees for hosting our recent receptions at the House of Lords, notably the recent welcome event for the Federation of Vets of Europe General Assembly, and a lunchtime discussion last week for members of both houses on the Rcvs recommendations for legislative reform. All stakeholders' interest and inputs to Rcvs projects and initiatives is greatly valued and appreciated because quality inputs produce quality outputs. I would like to thank members of the vet and vet nurse professions for your support, emails, texts, phone calls, and commentary on social media. It's great connecting with everybody. Last year, the Rcvs hosted a workforce summit with a preliminary series of online focus groups. We are not the only sector facing workforce shortages, and it was heartening that 80 individuals from across the professions and across the country came together. This event was not about looking backwards, but looking forwards to identify solutions, seeking stakeholders' ideas and insights to address recruitment, retention, and encourage returners to the profession. The room buzzed with energy, and the many suggestions were collated in a report, as Lizzie has mentioned, with an action plan under development. And as Lizzie has mentioned, there will be no silver bullet to this crisis, but by collaborating and drawing on the diversity of skills, knowledge, and expertise within the veterinary professions, I do believe we have both the means and the will to address the challenges we face. I am particularly proud of the scheme for refugees, which the Rcvs created in partnership with the Refugee Council in 2020. This was expanded last year, and the scheme now provides financial and educational support to UK-based veterinary professionals with refugee status to enable them to take the Rcvs statutory membership exam. And this includes free access to Rcvs knowledge library resources, as well as financial support for travel and accommodation related to examinations. As part of this package, the Rcvs has collaborated with the BVA, BSAVA, BEVA, BCVA, VMG, SPVS, and the Sheep Veterinary Society, who have all generously agreed to provide free membership, as well as a variety of benefits, including training resources and mentoring. So there's really such a sort of massive support there. And then another proud moment in March of this year, when Rcvs Council voted to expand this scheme to cover those with overseas veterinary nursing qualifications. I have visited each vet school to speak to the finaliers and lead newly graduated vets through their professional declaration. It's a really moving ceremony because every time it takes me back to my graduation, standing there as a 22-year-old, repeating the same declaration with pride pulsing in my veins. And I see the passion in their eyes when I shake their clammy hands. It's so inspiring to see the new cohort of veterinary surgeons fledge and take flight. And every one of those new graduates will have had a unique pathway to graduation. Every one of them will have a different story to tell. And everyone here will have stories to tell. Some we choose to share, some we keep to ourselves. But we are all shaped by our experiences, our lived experiences. There's a saying which goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Literally, this means the perception of beauty is subjective. What may be captivating to one person may be unappealing to another. Should be a slide. So what do you see? Do you see a broken bowl or one beautifully repaired? In Japanese, kintsugi translates as the beauty of imperfections, the art of repairing broken pottery by mending the areas of breakage with lacquer dusted in gold, silver, or platinum. I imagine many listening and watching have scars which can be traced back to bites, scratches, and kicks. I remember the time I was paring a horse's hoof, digging out a white line abscess when my hoof knife slipped. The curved blade scraped right across the skin on the inside of my left wrist, which was holding up the hoof. There was blood everywhere. But what was most mortifying was that the farrier was watching me, waiting to shoe the horse. I was still learning my craft. I've long white scars on my right forearm, the skin scraped off by calves newly erupted incisors, as I guided many a calf's head through the dam's narrow pelvic canal. But not all scars are visible. There's still a lump on my rib. The callus was formed after I broke it playing in the First Ladies Rugby Club at the Dick Vet School in Edinburgh. It was a loose tackle. I was still learning the technique. More recently, I broke my fibula. Boringly, when I went over my ankle in a pothole. Less boringly, it was in Havana. That was 6 years ago, and I still get the odd twinge. And not all scars are physical. I still have the scar of losing my father 8 years ago. My mother has Alzheimer's and has not recognised me for 5 years, which is another emotional scar. They were both teachers and a massive support to me growing up in suburban Glasgow. If they were a bit bewildered why their daughter developed a passion to be a farm animal vet at the age of 8, they never showed it and backed me to the hilt. This is why I believe the theme for my presidential year, Connections That Count, is so important. The connections have 3 dimensions. Firstly, connecting with ourselves, and we've heard a lot about that this afternoon. Eating, sleeping, and living well, so that we can be well, both physically and mentally. Secondly, connection with our professions and everyone working in the veterinary teams. It's so important the veterinary professions support one another to thrive in our chosen sector, ensuring vets and vet nurses are engaged and nurtured to develop in their careers. Thirdly, connection is about collaborating and working with other professions to exchange knowledge and build partnerships for the benefit of animals, humans, and wider society. I have been especially pleased in building the relationship with the Royal Society of Medicine and raising awareness of what the veterinary profession does, which has significant impact in challenging issues for the medical profession and social services. For example, vets, if they suspect a non-accidental injury in an animal, so that's an injury that does not align with the clinical history provided, vets can breach the client confidentiality, and it's explicit in the Code of Professional Conduct, and vets can report this suspicion to the appropriate authorities. It's a sobering thought, but by raising the lid on the possibility of an abusive household, a vet could be instrumental in saving someone's life, a child's life. I'm delighted to have spoken at 2 events hosted by the Royal Society of Medicine on the link between animal abuse and human abuse. And I'm thrilled that Professor Roger Kirby, President of the Royal Society of Medicine, has joined us today. What's next, Kate? It's something I'm asked with increasing frequency. But before I look forward, I want to reflect on what's happened so far. Looking back on my career, I have sought to identify what were the keys, the nudges, if you like, who helped or what helped or supported me to open many of the doors along my career path. At school, as I mentioned, I was determined to be a farm animal vet, despite having no experience of farm animal work apart from helping crofters in the summer holidays in the northeast of Scotland. So my mum wrote to the local vet of these crofters asking if this local vet would take me out on his rounds for a week. He tried to put me off, but he failed. All the farm vets I knew at that time were men, and I kept in touch with that person who'd given me that week of experience. I kept in touch with him through vet school, and one afternoon when I was revising for my finals, he phoned to offer me a job. This was the springboard to my career in farm animal work. He opened the door for me, and I jumped at the opportunity. I was the first female farm vet he had ever employed. He took a chance on me. I spent a year with him, and then moved to a larger farm practice in Aberdeenshire. Again, I was the first female farm vet they had employed, and again, someone took a chance on me. Then about 12 years later, one of the senior vets asked if I would do the official veterinarian course to share the veterinary public health work in the practice. On the third time of asking, I agreed. More out of support for him, if I'm honest, as he was always there for me in my early days with difficult calvings and uterine torsions. And over the next 2 years, I did a mix of farm and OV work, veterinary public health work. But my feet were becoming increasingly itchy, and I didn't know what else to do. I was a farm vet, wasn't I? Then one morning, driving to the slaughterhouse for a 5 a.m. start, I realised that being a vet was not limited to clinical work. It was a light bulb moment for me. The key that opened that door was the course in veterinary public health, which gave me an extra qualification, but I believe more importantly, it gave me the confidence to leave clinical practice or investigate a different area. Because I knew that if this next step didn't work out, then I had the dual safety nets of clinical practice and OV work, so I took a chance on myself. So within 6 months, I was offered a job in a pharmaceutical company in London. At my leaving party in Aberdeen, a farmer looked at me in disbelief as he said, "But Kate, there's nae coos in London." The veterinary advisor job was totally different, although I was still working with large animal vets and farmers, just no hands-on work. Instead, I gave technical support on the company's cattle and sheep products and gave talks across this country as well as in Europe. Then in 2001, I was driving to Bilthwells in Wales to give a talk to farmers about cattle leptospirosis when an announcement interrupted the music playing on the car radio. That can't be right, I thought. I looked towards the radio, it can't be right. Foot and mouth in the UK? A few weeks later, I was helping out in the DEFRA headquarters in London at weekends, really desperate to do something to help out in the crisis on top of my day job with the pharmaceutical company. And during those weekends in DEFRA, I worked with an amazing manager and experienced the teamwork and support of the Disease Emergency Control Centre in central London, the staff working under enormous pressure and increasing media scrutiny. The rural movement restrictions imposed in response to the foot and mouth crisis resulted in the general election being postponed by a month. I was in the thick of it. I'd never considered working for DEFRA, but the experience opened my eyes. And when I spotted an advert for a veterinary advisor in DEFRA a year or so later, I applied. So the key that opened that door was my experience working in foot and mouth. So I worked as a veterinary advisor in DEFRA for 18 months before moving to manage one of the government's scientific advisory committees on prions, so that was BSE, mad cow disease, and new variant CJD. 3 years later, in 2005, the World Health Organization issued alerts stating that the highly pathogenic bird flu sweeping Southeast Asia could move into the human population. Remember the run on Tamiflu? Remember countries stockpiling reserves? There was a call in DEFRA at that time for staff to help on the bird flu communications team, and my hand was up, waving frantically in the air. I was keen to move away from the veterinary pigeonhole others kept putting me in and was applying for communication roles, an area I was keen to develop. So this extra experience strengthened my application when I applied for the Corporate Stakeholder Communications Manager HMRC. On my first day, my new boss took me aside and just said, "I just knew I could work with you, Kate." The key to that move had been my time on the DEFRA bird flu communications team and the HMRC manager taking a chance on me. So how did I feel leaving DEFRA and not needing a veterinary degree for my job anymore? Well, I was terrified. But I still had that umbilical cord anchoring and tethering me to the veterinary profession. I was a member of the BCVA, British Cattle Veterinary Association Council, which kept me connected with the profession. And while my day job was totally non-veterinary, I never left the profession, I was still connected with it. I left government in 2014 with a non-executive role, and this divergence in my career happened when a friend emailed me with an advert. "It's got your name written all over it," she said. She nudged me, and I grasped the opportunity, stepped through the door when I was offered the position with the Morden Foundation Board. A year later, I was offered another non-executive role with SRUC, keen to develop my portfolio and relishing the challenge and diversity of work. I was first elected to Rcvs Council in 2015, adding to my portfolio. I had never thought of standing for president. It probably might have been in my mind at a subconscious level as an interesting possibility, but it was a council member who knows who she is, who provided the key which opened this door. She emailed me to ask if I'd ever considered standing for president. That nudge gave me the confidence, it planted the seed, and here I am today. This presidential year has had its twists and turns, has stimulated and stretched me and thickened my skin. I have grown both personally and professionally. However, despite being surrounded by people, it has at times been lonely. Leadership is lonely. Leadership of a regulator, even more so. But my aim throughout the year was to listen and learn, to support and facilitate, to collaborate and to connect. That was my intention, but I know I have not pleased everyone. I have developed a few more invisible scars, but these, I believe, have made me more resilient, more reflective, more determined. It certainly has whetted my appetite for more. For what exactly, I am not sure yet. So throughout my career, doors have opened due to a mixture of reasons. My own dogged determination, curiosity, support from friends and family, desire to learn and be stretched, the thrill of experiencing new roles, meeting new people and making connections. The keys for these career doors have included people, experience and circumstances, some in plain sight and some not immediately obvious. It was about being open to opportunities. So going back to what's next, Kate, my intention is to slide into the slow or slower lane to recharge before making my next move. I have a manuscript of my memoir, which has been gathering dust for the last year, so I shall return to that and indeed have enough material now for possibly another chapter or two. I've often been in the general bewilderment lane. It's a place where I reflect and take stock and work out what is important to me before looking for the next opportunity. Changing lanes is what I have done all my life, and I'm not going to stop now. We have all come to this event from varying directions with diverse experiences from different backgrounds and differing perspectives. It's all part of the fascinating tapestry of life, and we are the richer for it. It is so important to understand and recognise what each of us brings, to learn about each other, find out what has shaped us, and to foster those connections. So, Kintsugi, what do you see? Thank you. Before moving to the investiture of the new president, I would just like to say a few further words about our departing Senior Vice President, Dr. Mandisa Green. I must say, Mandisa did pull something of the short straw when it came to presidential terms, with renewed lockdowns and COVID waves to contend with for pretty much her whole year in office. Even though she very sadly missed out on a lot of the opportunities to meet members of the professions face to face, with her characteristic positivity, resilience and proactive attitude, she made good on less than ideal circumstances. Taking over from her presidential predecessor, Neil Connell, in July 2020 as chair of the Rcvs Council COVID-19 Task Force, Mandisa's practitioner experience and attention to detail helped make key decisions to shape and steer our coronavirus response. The pandemic aside, her presidential year also saw advances with our proposals for legislative reform following a profession-wide consultation, the publication of our first diversity and inclusion strategy, and the development of the Veterinary Graduate Development Programme. As well as being a role model and inspiring leader, Mandisa also has been a fantastic friend and colleague these past few years. While we will miss her, I know that she will continue to do fantastic things for and within the professions for many years to come. Mandisa, I invite you to the stage so we can show our appreciation for all your enthusiasm, hard work, and commitment during your time on the presidential team. And so, to introduce your new president, I am delighted to be passing the presidential baton on to Melissa Donald. Melissa has served as an elected member of council since 2016, and since then has served on a number of committees, including Education Committee, PICDC Liaison Committee, and the Finance and Resources Committee. She has also succeeded Kate Richards as chair of the Standards Committee, a job in which she has excelled. As I know from experience, chairing Standards Committee isn't for those who want to put their feet up. You are dealing with complex, multifaceted issues and having to digest large amounts of information in order to make decisions that can have very real and substantial impacts on the professions. Melissa has done this with aplomb, as demonstrated by the progress that has been made with the review of the Rcvs guidance on undercare and the provision of out-of-hours care that Lizzie mentioned earlier. A natural communicator, Melissa can talk with anyone and everyone with empathy, understanding, and a great deal of knowledge and experience about our profession and what it faces. Her active role in veterinary politics as former British Veterinary Association Scottish Branch President and past President of the Ayrshire Veterinary Association shows that she is attuned to what is going on at the coalface of veterinary life and is dedicated to doing what she can to make things better for all in our profession and those who benefit from our services. It must be said, and I think this is a crucial asset in a president, that Melissa is, as anyone who follows her on social media will know, good fun. While she takes on important work in a serious way, she also knows that good humour, used correctly and proportionately, is crucial for good communication. And I know she will continue to use this skill to good effect during her presidential term. Melissa, I am so proud to be handing over this very special and important role to you. Please join me on the stage for the formal investiture.
Thank you very much, everybody. So my first important duty as Rcvs President is to pay tribute to our now Senior Vice President, Dr. Kate Richards, who has led us through a year as unpredictable and challenging as the two before it, with the ongoing uncertainty of COVID, dealing with the after effects of EU exit, and reacting as best we can to the dreadful invasion in Ukraine. Kate's theme for her year was forging connections that count, and I think she has woven this throughout all her presidential activities. She's done it through her outreach with the Royal Society of Medicine on One Health and issues related to the links between animal and other forms of abuse that she has just mentioned. She's done it through her work with our European friends and colleagues at the FEE General Assembly in London. She's done it through talking to MPs, peers and ministers, not that I'm sure there's many of them left, about our proposals for large-scale reform of veterinary legislation. And she's done it through innumerable meetings and informal conversations with members of the veterinary and veterinary nursing professions. She has forged these connections with her colleagues on council and the officer team, with Rcvs staff, and with our many stakeholders through her kind, patient and considered manner, her knowledge of the issues and her intelligence. I look forward to her bringing all these assets to bear in her role as Senior Vice President with the officer team, as well as the new chair of the Education Committee, and very much look forward to continuing working with her over the next 12 months. Kate, on behalf of Council, thank you so much for all you have accomplished for the Rcvs and the veterinary professions. I now have the pleasure of presenting you with your official Past President's Badge. My second official duty is to introduce Sue Patterson as our new Junior Vice President and offer her a warm welcome to the presidential team, or as we fondly know it, the Big P and her posse. One thing I can say about Sue is that she gets things done. Rarely have I met someone so proactive about bringing about positive change and with such a wide range of passions and interests. As chair of the Environment and Sustainability Working Party, and by extension, the veterinary representative on the UK Health Alliance on Climate Change, she has been laser focused on working out how the veterinary professions can do their bit to mitigate the devastating effects of man-made climate change and contribute to a more carbon neutral future. Sue's strong social conscience is also reflected in her chairing of the recently established Working Party on how the veterinary professions can be a more accessible and welcoming option for people with disabilities. Once again, she is committed to bringing about positive change in this area to ensure that our profession is as accommodating and empathetic as possible. Sue will bring energy, experience, passion and challenge to her new role, as she has with all her previous ones, and will make us all the better for it. I very much look forward to her joining the officer team and can't wait to start working with her. Sue, please could you join me on stage to be formally welcomed as the Rcvs Junior Vice President.
Welcome to the office team, Sue. And now, Melissa, I know you have a few words for us on your first day as Rcvs President.
Thank you, Lizzie. So, I've sat in the seats in front of me now for the past 6 years. Okay, 2 of them have been at home. Nice top, jogging bottoms. And I've been a very proud member of this profession for 35 years next Monday, always voting in the annual Rcvs Council elections, never realising one day I would be standing up here. Kate's theme this last year of Connections That Count is so essential within our small but mighty profession. When I looked this up in June, there were over 300,000 medical doctors registered with the GMC. We, the veterinary profession, have around 30,000 registered with the Rcvs to look after farmed, pet, lab animal, exotic, zoo and wildlife species. In other words, all except the human, and we protect humans too with public health work. Even excluding farmed fish, over 300 million animals are being cared for by 30,000 professional veterinary surgeons and their teams. That is the scale of our small but mighty community. Being part of a community doesn't mean we all have to be clones of each other, but a group that can agree to disagree and is there for each other in times of need. We are part of many different community circles: family, school, online, college, work and hobbies, to name but a few, and many interconnect with each other just like a massive Venn diagram. Some people wish to keep the circles separate, but to me they are all intrinsically connected, and we are the sum of each part of our lives, and that is what makes us who we are. Of course, this doesn't mean we have to be everything to everyone 24/7, as me time is precious, and finding that space to breathe is what helps us feel grounded. So with this close proximity to each other, communication is key. My mother has offered me many wise words over the years, most frequently being, engage brain before opening mouth. But just as important as speaking is listening and actually hearing what is being said. So over this year, I will try and get out and about as much as possible, focus on hearing what our community is saying, and engage in many conversations as we work together. After all, I am the nomadic president of no fixed abode, well, at least until we all get to move into the new headquarters in Hardwick Street. Behind every president, there are teams of people who've skillfully managed the figurehead over the years, from our parents, and without them I definitely wouldn't be here, and family, to school teachers, some of whom are here, work experience facilitators, university and EMS mentors, friends, to work, and Rcvs colleagues. There are representatives of many of these teams sitting here or virtually at home. To have had this support is an immense privilege, and growing up, I took it for granted. But now it's time to give back. I love seeing the careers develop of the school children who came to our practice for work experience, and it is all our responsibility to make becoming part of the veterinary team accessible for all. Throughout my career, there have been moments where I looked at alternative options. It was once so bad, I even looked at accountancy. But there was never anything that persuaded me to change, and I can honestly say that I'm so glad I have been a vet over this era. But now what I really want to be part of is strengthening the profession so that today's new graduates can stand here in 30 plus years and say the same. That is what being on Rcvs Council is about for me. So at the start of this very special year, I'd just like to thank you all very much for supporting me, especially Kenny, my husband, who has been through all the highs and lows over the years and kept me together when I've crashed, kept me laughing at myself, celebrated the successes, and been my rock. Finally, just as with everything I have done throughout my life, I will put my all into this role and try not to let any of you down. Thank you. I would now like to hand back to Kate to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Melissa, and welcome. Connections may not bear fruit for many years, but are no less valuable for that. I was a veterinary student alongside someone called Josh Slater, now Professor Josh Slater working in Australia. We both graduated from the Dick Vet in Edinburgh, and I kept track of his career, as I did with all of my friends. And when I saw that he was speaking at the London Vet Show, maybe 10 or so years ago, a group of us arranged to meet up the night before for dinner, the night before the show began. And at that dinner, Josh introduced me to Jim Green. with whom he had been working on equine rescue training, whether as an animal-only operation or as part of a medical emergency rescue situation. A seed was sown that evening, which now bears fruit, and I'm delighted Jim is able to give the guest lecture today. The British Animal Rescue and Trauma Care Association not only demonstrates the value of professional connections, but the benefit in working across professions to uphold both human and animal welfare. You can read much more about Jim's background and career in your programme, but for now, I would like to hand over to Jim. Thank you, Jim. Over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, deeply disappointed not to be with you today for such an important occasion, but sadly, COVID has caught up with me and I've succumbed. So I'm just glad that I can still share this talk with you today, and thank you, Kate, for this wonderful opportunity. I'd like to talk to you today about a journey that we've been on over the last few years and the importance of our relationships with our veterinary community and some of the key connections that have presented along the way that have taken us to new heights and new levels and have helped us to develop in the way that we have. And so the talk today is around connections that count, integrating vets and emergency responders to meet societal needs. I'd like to start with a bit of history and the way life used to be when my father was a firefighter in the New Forest. And there's an extract here from a magazine where one of the crew were talking about their experience of rescuing a horse, and I'll just read a bit of it to you. So at 02:05 hours on the 31st of October 1982, we were called to rescue a horse from a full swimming pool at Newbridge. Apparently the animal had been ill, broken loose, and ran into the pool, which was covered by a green cover. So first of all, we pumped out the pool to knee deep, at which point the animal became frightened. So we switched off the pump and got into the pool, or at least Colin Knapp got into the pool. And Colin was a saddler by trade and was used to working with horses. So of course, he was the one that gets sent in. Some of the locals built a ramp using scaffolding boards, after which we got into the pool and tried to chase the horse up the ramp, but she wouldn't go near it. So we constructed a wall in the pool and alongside the ramp using bales of straw to give some dimension, which we thought would soothe the horse and entice it to climb the ramp. Well, after a couple of hours and several cups of whiskey-laced tea, the horse was coaxed up the ramp. And he liked to stress the fact that it was the fireman that drank the whiskey-laced tea and not the horse, although actually, as we know so much more about horse rescues now, then the sedation effect of whiskey may have been quite appropriate at the time. Now, some years later, we're now in the early 1990s, the same fire crew attended a notable incident involving a cattle grid similar to the one in the picture here, where a horse was trapped, and they brought all of their knowledge and experience of cutting people out of car crashes and all the equipment that they had that would allow them to do that. But what they were really frustrated with was the fact that the horse didn't respond to them. It basically self-destructed in the cattle grid when it was stimulated by all the noise and activity and had to be euthanized. And they went away from that incident feeling, really, really kind of sad that they hadn't been professional and hadn't been able to deal with this situation in the same way they would a human rescue. And there was this realization at that time that this was not the same as a human rescue for several reasons. Animals, firstly, were not relieved to see us when we arrive at the scene. We can't provide reassurance like we can to humans. And actually, by turning up with all of our equipment and tools and activity, we might actually make things worse. And actually, these were unpredictable outcomes. And this is not normal for a firefighter who is used to providing reassurance and being able to resolve a situation in a calm manner. So this really was a turning point for the fire crew, and they started looking at what they needed to know to be better informed to deal with these situations. So by the late 1990s, they'd implemented animal handling training and trying to understand their casualty a little bit more. Why did that animal behave in the way that it did? Why did that situation go so badly wrong? And this was when I joined the Fire and Rescue Service. And as a country boy, and coming from a forestry and a farming background, you know, I was very much interested in the animal rescue side of the role. And the animal handling training continued for some years, but we still had no formal rescue techniques to draw on. And it was still very much a case of making it up on the day. And then after a few years in the service, myself and some like-minded colleagues from rural backgrounds got together, and we had a desire to do things better. We had a desire to do some research and to really start to understand how we could proceduralize our response, how we could structure our response and our methodology. And we formed a team, and we were really the kind of conduit between the emergency services and the rural community, and really starting to draw on the knowledge and experience that we had, coupled with our emergency services backgrounds, and tried to come up with some structured protocols for these type of incidents. And that leads us to my first key veterinary connection. We looked around the world, and there was very little structured training going on for animal rescue. But one person that had started making inroads was Thomas Jimenez, who was a veterinary professor from the United States. And he'd been looking at a lot of the disasters that were occurring around the world, and particularly in America. And, you know, he wanted to start to provide some solutions. And what he realized quite early on was that the people that are there in the moment, the first responders, they were the ones that really needed to have formal training in techniques and the concepts and the philosophy of dealing with animals in emergencies. So we went over to do a course with Thomas, and we shared our ideas and our vision and our concepts, and together we have developed the toolbox of techniques that we have the luxury of using today. By 2006, this had become quite an important thing in our fire and rescue service in Hampshire, and we persuaded the service that an animal rescue manager's post was required to start to implement some of the changes that we wanted to bring in. I started developing formal courses and bringing equipment and vehicles into the service. And at the same time, there was a campaign by the Horse and Hound and the British Horse Society, which was highlighting the wide range of capabilities around the country in relation to animals and emergencies. And they were very concerned that the kind of service that you get in one county was not reflected in another. So they asked me to help them produce an emergency services protocol for control rooms to try and standardize the messages that we needed to get out. And that's when my key connection came into play, and that was Professor Josh Slater. I was invited to the emergency service protocol launch at Buckingham Palace in 2007, and that was jointly hosted by Beaver. And Josh was the president at the time, and he recognized at that moment that this wasn't just about the fire and rescue service doing things better. This was a joint collaboration between first responders and veterinarians, and that vets were really ill-equipped to provide veterinary care in the context of the multi-agency emergency situations, not something they were trained for at university. And that was really when the journey started to begin. So through Josh's presidency, Beaver initiated the Safer Horse Rescues initiative, and this enabled us to provide standardized training for vets in dealing with emergencies. They also created an emergency fund, which was really critical because we didn't want money to be a barrier to receiving veterinary support at incidents. And so the Directory of Equine Vets allowed us to summon the appropriate vet, and the emergency fund was there as a backup if they couldn't cover the costs of attending that incident. At the same time, you know, we'd been talking about animal rescue and starting to provide solutions, and many other fire services were interested in that. And we were asked to host a National Fire Service Conference where we opened up the subject to the rest of the country. And this was a real catalyst for change. And it was a time when Josh and other leading veterinary specialists that were working with us talked to the fire community about the need for joint working with veterinarians and a structured, coordinated approach to rescues. And through that forum, through that national conference, the Chief Fire Officers Association Animal Rescue Forum was established, and standing members in the early days were BEVA and the RSPCA. And of course, BARTA now sits on that forum as the national coordinating body for incidents involving animals. But this was a really pivotal time, and the UK Fire and Rescue Service then started to engage with the subject, and it enabled them to access training. Another key connection now was Dr. John Blackwell. John was the BCVA president who introduced the Animal Rescue Initiative into the Cattle Vets Association. He then became the BVA president and continued to be a key contributor and advocate for the journey. But John importantly experienced a really harrowing emergency on the Chirk viaduct some years ago now, but it remained with him. And that whole experience of dealing with a cattle transporter where a number of animals were ejected over the viaduct, number of animals were trapped, animals were loose and injured. He had to deal with various police services, various fire and rescue authorities. He had to deal with human fatalities at this incident. It was a really challenging, complex incident that was a really, a terrible experience for John, but it also shaped his opinion about why it was so important for us to have formal procedures and collaborative working when dealing with such an incident. And we've continued to work with John for many years since, and we're really grateful for the input that he's given. Now, military connections, I'm really proud of this, because over the years we've worked with a number of vets in the military, and we've provided some training for the farriers of the King's Troop and the Household Cavalry and the Defence Animal Training Regiment. They are the people that deal with animals and emergencies in the military. And this is where we first met Nikki. Nikki Hoosby-Skeggs was a military vet, and she embedded protocols for incident management in the mounted divisions that she was working at. Nikki, when she left the army, became the veterinary director at the Horse Trust, which is the parent charity of BARTA, and subsequently became the chair of the BARTA board. So I continue to work daily with Nikki, who was a real inspiration and driver for the initiative. By 2012, the vision was expanding. This was becoming more than horse rescue. This was becoming an all-species initiative, and other agencies and disciplines were involved in asking for training. So Highways England traffic officers, for instance, deal with 4,500 animal incidents on the road networks every year, and they needed training to understand what they needed to do to resolve these situations in everyone's best interest. And of course, we were then starting to look at racing and eventing, and this was just outgrowing, I suppose, the initiative within the Fire and Rescue Service. And it required a national coordinating body. And after giving this some considerable thought, Josh and I established BARTA with endorsement from the veterinary associations and the RSPCA and the Chief Fire Officers Association. And this was a momentous time. And again, here's Josh right in the thick of it, a real mentor to me, really a real advocate and supporter of, the vision that we had. And then, as many of you will be familiar with Dr. Chris Tufnell, who has been Rcvs president and on council. And Chris undertook an early beaver course with myself, and I arrived at the scene of a fairly traumatic incident on the A303 back in 2013, which involved a lorry load of polo ponies that had been hit by an articulated lorry and had rolled over, trapping 10 horses on board. And when Chris turned up with his colleague on scene, it was very reassuring, because I knew that Chris was trained, he was on message, he was very capable. And some of the things that he and his colleagues had to do at that incident were really thinking outside of the box. And this was really where trauma care principles started to evolve. And he's been a massive advocate for veterinary team well-being and support following traumatic incidents, which is something that I'm very passionate about as well, because these are dynamic, they are complex, they are exhausting. And, you know, it's really important to take care of our veterinary responders as well as our emergency service responders following these notable events. And during Chris's time on the Rcvs Council, the Equine Practice Standard Scheme began including the requirement for rescue training in their modules, and I'm immensely proud of that. Leading on to Nigel Hazelden. Nigel was again inspired by early training. We came together at the London Olympics as part of a bigger veterinary response team. I was there supporting the vet services team from a rescue perspective. And Nigel, following that, became a British Horse Racing Authority veterinary officer. He and I have continued to work tirelessly to translate rescue and incident management skills into the arenas of racing and eventing. And that is really starting to get traction now and will become internationally recognized. So a really passionate guy, dedicated, seeing this through. This is he's really playing the long game. Some of these things have been in the pipeline for some years now, but they are really getting traction, and I'm immensely proud to work with Nigel. In 2015, we held our inaugural conference in Prague, where we opened up the subject to a wider audience. And it was here that we came into contact with Gemma Pearson, who spoke about the behaviours of animals and people. And she's been really influential in supporting veterinary safety through encouraging appropriate training of animals. Debbie Archer from the University of Liverpool also spoke there. She's a key member of our working groups and a real advocate for student awareness. We're very passionately driven to support students so that they are trained and equipped before they come out of university and enter into practice and then encounter some of these quite chaotic and challenging situations that we deal with. And it's important to mention Doctors Karen Coombe and Laura Hart, again, key working group members. They participated in a human and animal focused trauma exercise involving helicopter medics and emergency services, where they wanted to bring an animal component to understand the complexities and the challenges that those animals would bring to a wider incident. In 2017, again, immense privilege, I was asked to go to UC Davis Vet School in California to support the work of Dr. John Madigan, who was integrating vets and firefighters for dealing with wide-scale emergencies involving animals, and most notably floods and fires in California. And during that time, I met some really passionate people. Dr. Claudia Sonder has gone on to organise an immensely professional, well-drilled and coordinated community animal response team. And since I've been there in 2017, year on year on year, they've had huge fire situations which have required massive volunteer contributions in terms of removing animals from a place of danger to a place of safety, sheltering and other support that's required to the people and animals that are displaced by such events. And then another important person was Dr. Jay Kerr, who was the president of the Californian Vet Med Association. And we were approached by the medical teams in Southern California. They were dealing with dogs and other companion animals in house fires and road traffic incidents. And they were asking for training in how to deal with pets, how to deliver first aid for pets at the scene. And in California at the time, the law prevented first responders from delivering first aid for pets because it contravened the veterinary practice law. So I got a really key team together, including Jay Kerr, who led on this, and they actually changed the law in California to allow first responders to deal with small animals in emergencies. During the time that I was at California, we put on a conference and we invited people, leading contributors from the veterinary world, to this conference, all the people that were passionate and had vision for creating programs and education to deal with animals in emergencies and disasters. And just a few are Wesley from Texas A&M, Becky McConaughey, Reagan Adams, Louisiana and Colorado, and Chris Riley from Massey in New Zealand, who has gone on with Josh to create a similar organisation to BARTA in Australia and New Zealand that we are supporting to bring about the changes that they need to in their emergency services to deliver these kind of interventions. And what I find is that when we connect people, they can begin to collaborate, and that ensures a consistency of message, which is really fundamental in what we're trying to achieve. At the same time, we were contributing to some new guidance for the UK Fire and Rescue Service, and this operational guidance was for incidents involving animals. This broadened the scope from large animal rescue to incidents involving animals, and they recognised that animals are going to be part of family groups and our environments, and whatever emergency we deal with as an emergency responder, we may encounter animals and have to interact with them or help them or deal with the impact of their presence. And this really does now cause us to have to prepare, because it means that in all hazards, all environments, all species and all responders are going to be affected, and we need to have solutions for these problems. From a veterinary perspective, the Civil Contingencies Act actually talks about private veterinary surgeons may be called to the scene of an emergency or an accident, and their job really is to provide emergency veterinary assistance to relieve pain and suffering and to protect animal welfare. Also, veterinary care may be required for companion animals that have been displaced with their owners by an incident, and we really need to ensure that we've given sufficient training to veterinarians to help them to work alongside the emergency services at these scenes, and to ensure that we've considered the contractual arrangements so that we can engage private veterinary surgeons. And this is probably little known about, but it's really important, because as we've developed the initiative, we've recognised the importance of the veterinary responder, and we need to have the mechanisms to ensure that veterinary support is available on scene to support the animals and the emergency services. In 2019, this really started to change direction, and BARTA became not just a voluntary role for me, but it became my full-time commitment as we became part of the Horse Trust, our parent charity, and I exchanged my fire and rescue full-time career to pursue the vision that was continuing to grow. So this is really important part of our journey. And Josh, again, he is the chair of trustees for the Horse Trust, and was pivotal in explaining the value that this initiative brings to the animal community and the welfare that this will support moving forward. More key connections, Adam Mugford, who will be with you today. Adam is a leading critical care specialist, small animal critical care specialist, and he's taking us into new territory. And that is pre-veterinary immediate emergency care for first responders. And here, Adam and Dominic Barfield have been providing expertise and guidance to support the training and clinical governance that goes with emergency services, having the knowledge and skills to provide pre-veterinary care to animals in emergencies before they reach definitive veterinary care. And there are a range of different people that have been supporting this along the way, and really, this is a joint effort, but being led by Adam, who is very passionate, and I'm so glad that we are able to work with him and benefit from his skills, his expertise, and his guidance and his mentorship as we progress this area, which is quite unfamiliar for many of us in the fire service. Scotland, again, this is another important area of work, and Dr. Patrick Pollock needs special mention. He's leading the implementation in Scotland. He's a key member of our working groups. He's embedded animal rescue into the Glasgow and Edinburgh Vet School curriculums. He's trained his hospital staff, who are now recognised as responders through the Scottish Asset Register, and they can be called on to support the emergency service. And he's also embedding multidisciplinary response training into his senior vet role at race courses. And BARTA are really proud that we're about to enter into an MOU with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and the University of Edinburgh to deliver appropriate training to the firefighters of Scotland. And this brings us on to Kate. And Kate, we met through Professor Josh Slater, funnily enough, when attending the London Vet Show, and Kate was in touch recently to ask me to speak here. And this was really timely because I wanted to chat about the Rcvs, perhaps reviewing the concepts of training for first responders and vets, and also exploring some new ways of working, including the prospect of vet-led teams supporting incidents. And some of the challenges that we have with small animals are that small animal veterinarians are not always able to leave their practices, particularly out of hours, to come to a fire or a road traffic collision or an entrapment to support animals there. And often we've talked about maybe a senior nurse coming out and under the guidance of the vet providing us with the immediate care that's required and the support that's required to resolve that situation and then remove the animal to a place of safety. And when I talked about vet-led teams, actually this was also on the agenda for the Rcvs. And so, again, these connections are so important because they're joining up the thinking that is happening on both sides. And so here I am today. So how have these veterinary connections counted? Well, ultimately, the relationship between the veterinary community and the emergency services through this initiative have led to improvements in public safety and well-being across continents. Undoubtedly, this is benefiting people across the world. This is benefiting responders' safety and well-being across continents. And this is benefiting animal safety and well-being across continents. And we've moved from a have-a-go scenario to we've got a plan now, and we really understand the needs of the incident, the specialists that are required. We have protocols in place. We have joint working, and this is really all about managing risk and meeting societal needs. We've still got a long way to go. The 2012 opinion paper from the Farm Animal Welfare Committee to government outlined the fact that we still have a lack of preparedness really for non-disease emergencies at national or EU level. They don't exist to the degree that they need to. And from the responses that they received during their consultation, they concluded that the Fire and Rescue Service was the only emergency service that focused specifically on animal welfare. And that was really about localized incidents. So when it comes to wide-scale incidents, major incidents, I think we still as a country need leadership to continue to improve the readiness for future challenges that we are going to face. But our connections continue to multiply and spread. We are tapping into expertise and knowledge across the world, and they can benefit from our journey and we can benefit from theirs. And with your help, I have full confidence that these connections, enabling, influencing and championing this initiative will give us great confidence in the future outcomes that we're able to support for the benefit of people and animals. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity, and please get in touch if you have any questions. I'll be happy to discuss further, and who knows where this will lead.
Thank you very much, Jim, for your inspiring talk, and also for your drive and determination for sort of spearheading this yourself and with others and through others over a decade. I think it really demonstrates the power of connections and how that then drives collaborations and partnerships, and has been ably demonstrated here for the benefit not only of animals but for the public and wider society. So I'm not sure if Jim's still online, but if anyone has any questions potentially they would like to pose to Jim, I'm not sure if that's going to be possible in this format. I'm getting a bit of a head shake, so sorry. But if anyone, so Jim offered, if anyone has any questions or things they would like to get in touch with him, I think there was a web, well, there was certainly the website there, and that's the way to get hold of Jim. There's an email address on there. So ordinarily, at this point, we would present Jim with a commemorative skull to mark the occasion, but we will be posting that to you, Jim. And I just want to thank you again for such a wonderful, fascinating and inspiring talk this afternoon. Really sorry you couldn't be with us in person, and thank you so much for being with us today, even with a dose of COVID, and we wish you a full and speedy recovery. Thank you very much, Jim. So thank you, everyone. That now brings our formal proceedings to a close. It only remains for me to thank a number of the Rcvs that are here today, the Rcvs staff that are here today. And I want to sincerely thank our communications team. So that's Deb, Jacob, Luke, Zoe, and Ian in particular, for all your hard work in making today happen and be such a success. I also want to thank Hannah, Dawn, and the facilities team, who have also worked tirelessly to keep us together, to make sure that everyone's in the right place at the right time with all the things that they need. The mace coming in before us, leaving with us. So thank you, everybody, all of the staff, really for your work. It's a huge amount of work, as you can imagine, that goes behind an event like today. So I'd like you to join me in thanking the teams. And my final thank you is to yourselves, both here in 1 Great George Street and online. Thank you for joining us today. It has been wonderful to share this experience with you in person as well as online, rather than through a small screen. It's been a day about recognising and celebrating some extraordinary achievements in the veterinary professions, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So once Council has processed out, I would be delighted if you would join us for afternoon tea in the Great Hall, where we were earlier. So with that, I thank you.